Cassius, what do you mean not after that? There was an almighty thump from above, and both of them looked up as the entire bunker shook. Drake stared at Cassius, wide-eyed. Are we under attack? Drake exclaimed, receiving a curt nod from Cassius. Shaking his groggy head clear, Drake leapt from the hospital bed, frantically gesturing for Cassius to lead the way. Drake reached for his sword, only to feel the soft cloth of his smock. Cursing, Drake followed Cassius out the infirmary door, as the too calm voice of Cassius's text reader filled him in. They brought the hammer down on us. There's at least 100 foot soldiers and a Gallic outside the blast doors. They've been chipping away at them with demolition charges for the past 2 hours. We've tried to evacuate the old, sick, and juvenile, but... The bunker rocked with another detonation, causing Cassius's text reader to skip. The sounds of shouting reaching them from up ahead, as Cassius typed up a storm with one hand. But the back exit won't open. We think they're jamming it somehow. We're setting up a barricade to try and hold them off if they make it through. But there's a really old-looking Geknosion out there who keeps screaming for the Demon of Denner Street, whatever that means. Drake nodded along, the bunker rocking with yet another detonation. Passing by Drake's bunk room, Cassius paused, nervously glancing back and forth between Drake and the hallway. Strapping his sword on over the smock, Drake rejoined Cassius, picking up the pace as the detonations increased in frequency. Unease had Drake's stomach in his throat as they rounded the corner to the barricade. The blast door at the end of the hallway buckled inwards as yet another detonation shook the bunker, making the lights flicker. Gun, now, Drake commanded of a blonde-haired young man who seemed scared shitless. The young man obeyed, holding out his M40 carbine for Drake. Drake grabbed the gun, but the young man held on, eyes swimming with terror as he stuttered. Are we going to make it, sir? Drake sized the young man up. He was scrawny, short, and utterly terrified. But still, he manned the barricade. What's your name? He asked, the young man quickly offering it up. My name's Randall, sir. Drake nodded, giving Randall an encouraging grin. I promise we're gonna make it, Rand. Boom! 1 second. Drake was telling Randall it would be okay. He could see the terrified young man starting to believe it, starting to smile. The next, he was holding on to the young man's M40 carbine, staring in shock and horror at the severed arm that still held onto the rifle's handguard, just beneath his. The sound of gunfire and screeching plasma bolts erupted around him, but it was muffled by the ringing in his ears. Randall had been right there, right in front of him, but now he was gone, as though he'd disappeared. Shocked, Drake looked back down the hall where a massive chunk of durasteel had wedged itself into the wall, blood dripping from beneath it. Metal didn't bleed. It couldn't. Yet there it was, a crimson puddle forming on the ground beneath it. Metal didn't bleed, but humans did. Humans bled a lot, no matter how scrawny they were. The ringing in Drake's ears morphed into a scream of anguish and pain. Tension built in Drake's chest as he slowly turned to face the power-armored Geknosions, flowing in through the hole blown in the blast doors. Suddenly, Drake went numb, the sounds of battle fading away as he gently, reverently set the rifle and severed arm on the ground. Straightening, Drake slowly gripped the handle of his sword, unaware of the wisps of pitch-black smoke rising off of him. Looking up from the rifle, his vision locked onto a Geknosion with a shoulder-fired weapon, the barrel still steaming from being used to blast open the thick metal blast doors. For a split second, everything turned red for Drake. The next thing he knew, he was standing half a pace behind the Geknosion soldier, arm and sword outstretched. There was a wet sucking sound, accompanied by the grinding of metal as the Geknosion heavy trooper's chest slid off of the rest of their body. The fighting had stopped as both sides tried to comprehend what had just transpired. A raspy voice whispered something in the silence, only growing louder. I am... Drake threw his head back, releasing an almighty, inhuman roar of anger. his sword beginning to shine with a malevolent, otherworldly light. "Going to kill you all!" As though in slow motion, several Geknosian soldiers raised their plasma weapons as Drake took in the situation. His heart pounded in his ears, vision flashing red. They'd killed him. A young man with hopes, dreams, and aspirations, gone in an instant. There was no room for thought in the boiling storm of fury that consumed Drake's being. The blinding green-white suns of plasma bolts formed in the air, hurtling towards him. The sound of a distant bell rang in his ears, getting closer and closer, until... snap! Drake's sword arm moved on its own, slashing through the plasma bolts as though they were standing still. Bursting forth, he ran his sword through the chest plate of one of the Geknosions. There were no words as he yanked it free, swinging the sword in an upwards arc to remove the arm of the Geknosion, pointing a laser pistol in his face. Before the arm even hit the ground, its owner's head was split by an almighty two-handed overhead swing. Something bit into Drake's back, and he roared in defiance, spinning around and decapitating the Geknosion who'd shot him in the back with their plasma blaster. Bodies fell, missing limbs and heads as Drake and his sword danced through the enemy ranks, each kill fueling Drake's bloodlust. He didn't need to think. He didn't need to reason. He just needed to kill. Drake twisted around, half-sorting to more accurately jam the fat-bellied tip of his sword into the gaps of Geknosian armor, his body burning with fatigue and mounting wounds. His blade shuddered to a stop, inches away from a human child's face. In an instant, the bloodlust drained away as Drake stared dumbfoundedly at the kid, not noticing the old, scarred Geknosian with a hand on the boy's shoulder. Something heavy smashed into Drake's jaw, dislocating it with a sickening pop as he was thrown to the ground. Someone was laughing above him, and the shooting had stopped. Drake tried to get up, but a heavy metal boot slammed down on his back, pinning him in place. "The demon shows their face. Finally!" The scarred, triangular face of an old Geknosian came into his view. The old gecko kneeling down to get a better look, like Drake was a zoo exhibit. With a wicked grin, the gecko dragged the kid down into a headlock, before placing a laser pistol against their head. "If you try anything, this one dies. Now, on to introductions." The Geknosian chuckled, shaking their head. "Though it might be a waste on animals like yourself. My name is 5th General Mogo. You see, Devin was having trouble with you. What's the word he used? Ah, yes, you parasites. So he called us in. Who are we? We're mercenaries, and that's all you need to know." Drake breathed laboredly, staring daggers at Mogo. Truth be told, no matter how much power he could muster, one arm was pinned beneath his stomach, and the other was currently being crushed by Mogo's boot. The Gecko General just chuckled at Drake's obvious scheming, waving a hand to dismiss it before speaking into a small wrist-mounted device. "Squads 2 and 4, exterminate this little den of rats. But please, have fun with it. Even their greatest warrior barely stood a chance against us." Drake struggled, shouting garbled curses through his dislocated jaw, his heart sinking into his stomach as more than a dozen heavy boots marched past his field of view towards the bunker. Mogo laughed, waving the laser pistol around like a conductor's baton. Then, Mogo paused, looking past Drake at the bunker's entrance. "Ah, the traitor. Brown, was it? Have you come to join your cohort?" Drake's heart sank even further as Brown's bare foot claws appeared in his vision. The ancient Geknosian's voice sounded tired. "Mogo, last I saw you, you got promoted." Mogo's face fell into a snarl. "What do you want, traitor? Did you come here to taunt me in your final moments? Brown let out a soft, tired laugh. No, I came here to atone. Mogo's eyes widened, and suddenly the foot pressing down on Drake's back disappeared. The Geknosion holding him down had tackled Brown. The old Geknosion screaming, Go! Run, Drake! Save the others! Quickly scrambling to his feet, Drake glanced back. Mogo and the two armored Geknosions that had been securing Drake were trying to wrestle something from Brown. But Drake couldn't see what it was. He hesitated, wanting to help him, but Brown caught his eye and smiled. Go! I'll catch up! He shouted, and Drake nodded, snatching up the poor, stunned kid Mogo had tricked him with. Then, grabbing his sword from the ground, sprinted into the bunker. Mogo struggled with the traitorous Geknosion, trying to claw the death sphere from his hand. In a moment of desperation, he stepped back and put 2 high-intensity laser pulses into Brown's chest, his men backing up on instinct as the elderly Geknosion fell to the ground, the death sphere rolling away and revealing the hole in its main body. It was a fake, a clever ruse. Mogo snarled, standing over the dying Brown, panting from exertion and panic. Mogo asked, How does it feel, dying for your precious parasite, Brown? The elderly Geknosion chuckled exhaustedly, reaching into the chest of their robe with a wide smile. Mogo had been on enough deployments to realize what was happening. He'd barely turned and started to run, when Brown's laugh turned into a cackle as the elderly Geknosion spoke his final words. How does it feel? It feels euphoric. The click of the detonator was the last thing Mogo heard as he was lifted off his feet by an explosion.